writing then?
I'd be happy to, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Senator Grassley. Senator Leahy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Deputy Attorney General, it's great to see you here. I've had the pleasure of working with you over the years. You talked about being a junior staff member here. You were a very vital staff member right from day one, and I appreciate
Thank you.
being here on this, and I can't think of anybody better to be talking about Violence Against Women Act. It's one of the most consequential pieces of legislation within our committee's jurisdiction. Fortunately, last time successfully reauthorized was in 2013. I was glad in that one when Senator Crapo and I brought the bill through. We had students, immigrants, LGBTQ individuals, those on tribal land. And it passed overwhelmingly. But those of us who, in our days as prosecutors, saw what happened in violence against women, not a statistic, but actually saw the victims. I talked to the victims, those who were still alive and could talk. So I'm glad you're here. I think you would agree that it's important to not only reauthorize, but improve and strengthen the law. Would you agree with that?
I do, Senator.
And I think back often to my own experience. Many of us had experience as prosecutors. You see the impacts of domestic and sexual violence on individuals, on their communities. We also know that one size doesn't fit all in the criminal justice system. I've been looking at things like restorative justice principles and practices. Maybe they can help those empower survivors to have a voice in shaping the response to harm. And it gives them and their communities an opportunity to make sure that those who cause the harm be accountable for their actions. I've been working with your Justice Department to establish the federally backed National Center on Restorative Justice. I'm familiar with it because it's housed within the Vermont Law School. The center received initial funding from the Office of Justice Programs, received another Justice Department grant earlier this year to continue, and I appreciate that. Both the House Representatives and the White House have expressed support for continuing and expanding it as needed. So, a long way around to come to the question, we have to reauthorize, we have to improve in the existing law. I think utilizing restorative justice approaches is one of those necessary improvements. So, Deputy Attorney General Monaco, we're working to finalize restorative justice language within the Senate VAWA legislation. Will you support exploring restorative justice as another approach to reducing domestic and sexual violence in our communities?
Yes, Senator, and just to give you a sense of my thinking on this, I start from the premise that the original Violence Against Women Act, at its core, was about improving responses, as we've talked about, improving responses to domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, sexual assault, and improving the response of law enforcement in the courts. It had been treated as a private matter, and we had to innovate, and we had to change our thinking. And as has been noted before, earlier this morning, the hallmark of reauthorizations of VAWA in the past has been filling gaps and innovating and improving and modernizing our services. And what I have heard from advocates and from experts is that some survivors are reticent to seek help from the criminal justice system. And so they need other options. I think those options need to be evidence-based, they need to be voluntary, but I think a hallmark of violence against women in the past and in the future ought to be being willing to study and innovate and be responsive to what we're seeing on the ground. So yes, Senator, and I'm very pleased that OJP and the Bureau of Justice Assistance has been able to fund the Restorative Justice Center you mentioned in Vermont.
Well, I appreciate that, and I have a feeling that at least the Senate Appropriations Committee will make sure the money is there that you may need on this. And and you alluded to this, and I'll close with this. I think back and with a distressed memory of a number of cases when I was a prosecutor, when a victim of violence against women, sometimes no longer alive, would come forward, we find this has been going on for some time, and that person never felt they had a place they could go to report it. And I have often said, I was distressed in my office as state's attorney to hear about it for the first time as we're ordering the autopsy. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Leahy. Senator Cornyn.
Deputy Attorney General Monaco, thank you for being here today. I'm actually a little surprised to see you, given the fact that you refused